Center, and the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, in celebration, of course, of the Buwan ng Panitikan, or the National Literature Month. So I'll be your host for today's event, and my name is Christoph. Good morning once again, and welcome to the second day of our event, the Tutok Sebwano. So before that, I would like to thank Robinson's Galleria and the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. Of course, we'd like to thank Cebuano Study Center, mga anak sa dagat, and in other words, for making this event possible. So I will give a recap of yesterday's program. Yesterday we had a fascinating set of talks that included travel writing, queer writing. So these are two genres of writing that are currently emerging here in the Philippines. So Miss Bambi Beltran also gave a short lecture on acting. So she also showed us some films that she was featured in. And then we had a discussion on Cebuano literature, and then the horror genre, and a panel discussion on fake news. For today's program, we have prepared another series of talks for you. We will have discussions on independent publishing, children's literature, performance poetry, women's writing, feature writing, and the Cebuano contemporary art. We will also be graced by Mr. Henry Go of the Cebu Literary Festival. And we will also have a moderated panel discussion about social media titled To FB or Not to FB. Then it will be followed by the launching of the Bisaya translated edition of Felicitas. And the last part of the program will of course be an open mic wherein I encourage the audience to join and share your compositions or your poems. So I think our first speaker is ready. He is an actor and writer known for films Babylon. This was last year, Iskalawags in 2013, and Sabado Sabado in 2012. He is also an artist who specializes in graphic design. So let me now give the floor to our first esteemed speaker, Mr. Eric Tuban. A round of applause.
Hello, my name is Eric, and I'm going to present. My topic will be a primer on publishing. I'm going to discuss zines, do-it-yourself, self-publishing, small press, and internet news. So these are my topics of discussion, just a guideline. Just going to give a personal background about myself. I'm going to discuss about zines, the do-it-yourself culture, self-publishing, small or independent press, pros and cons of publishing, and best practices on publishing. Just a personal background. I'm a graphic designer by trade. That's my panginabuhi. Also a web developer. And on the side, I also produce albums by local independent bands here in Cebu and as well as in Manila. And also I write sometimes. I write poetry, I write short story, and last 2013, luckily my short story was picked up or was made into film, which was funded by Cinema One. And as a publisher, I run a small press called PonRecords.com. Yeah, as an indie publisher, these are some of the books we published: zines, chapbooks, journals, art books, comics. So, these are just some of them. And most recently, nagpagawas niyo ka ng postcard book collection. It's called Postcrude. Postcrude is a postcard book collection released every quarter and features artworks of Cebuano artists and designers. And for this issue, I featured 15 artists from Cebu. And those are some other works are released as a postcard and also at the same time as a book. So yeah. Next quarter we're gonna release another 15. Release volume 2, which will include another 15 featured artists. That's all. Okay, end of part 1. So what is a zine? So just basic definition. It's pronounced as zine and not as a sign. And it's shortened. It's a magazine without the maga. So it's a zine. It's also known as a fanzine. It's a portmanteau of fan and a magazine. So it's combined. It started in 1940 through a science fiction fanzine, and it entered the Oxford English Dictionary in 1949, both zine and fanzine. So zines are physical, printed, self-published creations that can consist of a single sheet of paper or over 100. They're also independently made for the love of creating and rarely make a profit. So, ang mga zines, kaya really ka na siya fun. It's just art for art's sake lang. Kailangan ka mag-release without thinking of any monetary in return. At least that's what I believe. And zines are usually photocopied, but they can be offset, letterpress, lithograph, or digitally printed. So, muna yung type format niya. And the contents are usually personal, travel stories, political ideologies, music-related, sci-fi, comics, anything else you can think of, you can put it into a zine. So, zines are made by spectrum of people throughout the world from all ages and walks of life. So basically, isang bata pa ka, tiguang, sa payamugan, pwede ka magbuhat ng zine all by yourself. It's that easy to make a zine. And zines are community-based, and most of those who create zines, they build and participate. Zineers who build and participate in them celebrate the tangible written word and support each other's effort to do so. So, paano siya ka-number? It's community-driven siya. And not just here in Cebu, in the Philippines, but internationally, there are like zine communities who build zines and create festivals and events to sell or to release their artworks or written material. So sa Cebu natin every July, June-July we have Cebu Zine Fest. It's basically mga different artists and writers we gather to release and distribute our material. If you're interested, just search on Cebu Zine Fest. And my favorite definition of zines, zine, they are the working class, the literature of the working class. Because zines are easy to make and easy to distribute, easy to reproduce. So, dali ra kayo makabuhat sa ginsa. And then, most books go through a process of like publisher. You have to, basta taas ang process, but since you can just make it, photocopy it, then release it. But the irony of the same thing can be said about what on what man we're since we're dealing with the printed material, so yeah. So sorry. But ang irony sa kay most of the people who make scenes are mga hobbyists, artists, so really good siya kanang mag-propagate as a working class in future. Since we're talking about scenes, ang kuhan sa Galleria, ang kaluha or kanang silingan kay DIY culture. DIY stands for do-it-yourself. So the term DIY culture refers to people doing things for themselves and also a wide range of elements in a non-mainstream society such as grassroots political and social activism, independent music, art, and film. So basically being self-reliant and releasing your material. So DIY is associated in the international alternative rock. In the context of scenes, it's related to the arts and crafts movement that it offers alternative modern consumer culture's emphasis on relying on others to satisfy needs. So basically, being self-reliant, doing things for yourself, of the people, by the people, of the people. So, question, at sa may connection sa libro ni Walt Whitman nga Leaves of Grass of 50 Shades of Grey. Ito siya makatubag. Both of these, ang kuha nila common thread sa duha ka libro, both of them are released as self-published. So, ang Walt Whitman nga Leaves of Grass kay the poetry collection was self-published in Brooklyn in 1855. The first edition contained only 12 poems, but the final edition contained around 400. So, sige nang i-revise ni Walt Whitman while self-publishing the book. And the first edition was found offensive due to its homosexual undertones. However, not all responses were negative. So, kaning we brought today is considered as a literary classic. And sa pikas bahin, matod ba ni Salman Rushdie sa 50 Shades of Grey. I've never read anything so badly written that got published. It made Twilight look like War and Peace. So, wala siya. Both of these books are self-published by the authors themselves. So self-publishing, since nag-isgot mo taganihan ko, so self-publishing is the publication of any book, albums, or other media by its author without the involvement of an established publisher. So it's self-explanatory naman na. So unlike the traditional publishing model in which control of the publication is shared with the publisher, the author, and basically you subvert the agent, publisher, marketer. So you go directly, you market directly yourself upon publishing your book. So why do people self-publish? Quick turnaround. So just what I mentioned a while ago. Once you self-publish your book, makita din yung, after yung magsuwat sa libro, yung mo na itong publish, yung mo na ipaprinta, nakita din yung libro. And at the same time, dali ang kuhansad, sa pagbaligyasan, dili na kamo ang publisher na maliktaw na sa iyong kwarta. Then matagin mo, ang kuhansad sa being self-published is the financial aspect of publishing is handled by the author themselves. So another reason why people self-publish is total creative freedom. So kung di ka madlok may censor ka or ganang pag gusto ka sa yung being a self-published author. And there's a strong sense of community. I'm getting, especially with the scenes, what I've discussed a while ago, na siya yung community of full of writers who assist each other and help each other publish their material. This is like internationally, international as well as in local scene. And lastly, wakay choice. So, kaya mo publish nimo, unless you're a really best-selling author. So, wala yung choice. So, you have to publish it by yourself. Sariling sikap mo. So, just what I mentioned a while ago, ang old model of publishing, from being an author, you go through a literary agent, although sa Pilipinas di kanya applicable. But yeah, you go to a literary agent, then the literary agent proposes your book or your masterpiece to a publisher, and then a publisher will decide and once the decision has been made, yan ang i-edit, about the cover, layout, the market, and then after that, ibigyan na sa market. Whereas, being a self-published author, hindi mo siya i-bypass tanan. You go directly to an online market. So, ikaw mo mismo mo edit sa libro, ikaw mo buhat sa cover design, unless you know someone, you do, ikaw sa layout, the market, everything, you do it by yourself. Yeah. So, so a middle ground between being a self-published and a mainstream publisher are small press or indie publishers, which what I do, as I mentioned a while ago, I publish books, mainly my material as well as mga books by friends, chapbooks, zines, artworks. So, yeah, muna siya yung middle ground between mainstream and self-publishing. Small indie presses are publishers that are not part of large conglomerates or multinational corporations. So, and then the shaky middle ground, just like what I've said, between a mainstream publisher and a self-publishing writers. Publisher whose distribution and market reach are limited and cater mostly to a niche audience. So, limited na sila yung audience kay kanang tungod sa means of production, gamay rin yung wala kay financial backing or marketing backing. So, limited as then technically not a small presses are technically not a self-publishing press, but they can assist in self-published writers in the distribution and marketing of their book. So ang kaning mga small presses mahog sa nga mga distributor distro sa imong libro. If you already have a self-published books, you can pwede naman sila doon, they can assist you with that. And small presses are publishers who own the copies that are being printed. So tagiya sila sa kanilang imong libro ang iprinta, but usually they do not own the copyright of the book itself. So ang author, the copyright and the royalty of the book, pabilin sa author na i-publish. That is the usual deal. I don't know so much, but that's generally the agreement between the writer and the small publisher. Next. just pros and cons between publishing with a small press. Ang pro niya kay direct and easy contact, so dali rin mo kung makontak kay tungod kay dili kayo ingon kadaghan ang kanang mga ipang-publish. So, dali rin sila doon. You know, unlike kanang mga anyway, the financial and design aspects are taken care of. So this is as opposed to being a self-publish. Ang mga small press sila yung handle sa imong libro, sila yung paprinta, sila yung design, sila yung layout, and faster turnover, just like what I mentioned. Dali ra mahatag ang libro, dali ra sa kamabayaran tungod kay dili kayo ng kanaghanan na publish. And then copyright royalty of the book is yours, so same as ganihan. Then they are not given like profit mostly, or at least not the main priority sa small press, but the desire to help push a body of work. So dili kaya sila tuwan sa kahalin na libro, which sometimes is negative, but what I mean is saan ko describe? Dili sila they just want to publish your work. Dili kayo mo matter if dili ka known author or dili ka halinon author. They just want to help you push your body of work. And editorial control. So ang author or writer nagyapon niya ang editorial control at final say sa mabutan. And cons, lastly, small presses are not afraid to think outside the box. So yeah, not kay idea lang na hanggang publish o box set, kundi naman example kami. And the cons of publishing with a small press, we only cater to a niche market, so gamay rin yung reach, unlike international publishers or Imperial Manila publishers. Limited copies are sold, so same. You have to assist in marketing your book, so ikaw mismo ang market sa mong libro aside from the small press. And then, another thing is less ang validation compared to being published mainstream. So if you're up to that kind of thing, huwag kayo validation makuha sa small presses kay diliman ka ng sikat na publisher ang nag-publish nimo. And profit margins are narrow. So related nga po sa first two cons. So di sa gagawa advance kay depende naman sa pila kabuk mahalin. So more hands-on sa as I said, it could be a pro and a con. If ganahan ka na mo na isang libro, that's a pro. So this is the last part. So you're ready to publish your masterpiece. So yeah, it's a given to consider your options. At baka sa self-publish baka or indie publisher, small press publisher baka or mainstream baka. But if you have a choice, you have to decide between going to an indie publisher or publishing it yourself. Wala nyo ikuhan, small press or indie publisher, self-publish baka. But again, you have to next slide. Know your resources. So, dami mo sa if nakailang kailang trabaho mo layout, trabaho mo pag nabaray tagiyan, nabaray small press or indie publishing company, so pwede na nag-order. At the same time, you have to parang sa ng scope sa imong libro na ganang i-publish. Don't be afraid. The internet is your friend. So, don't be afraid to reach out to friends. Like, gusto ka magpatabang, or research makaroon sa publish sa imong libro, nagabay small press publishers within your surroundings, just do your research. And lastly, create first and then publish later. So yeah, it's given. So before ka mag-una na mag-publish, suwat lang sa gato, suwat lang sa bayo. And then yeah, once ready na gina. So according to William Blake, I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's. I will not reason and compare my business is to create. That's by William Blake, aside from publishing his masterpiece, Songs of Innocence and Experience. He also invented relief etching, or also known as illuminated printing. He self-printed books that was around 1700s in his own living room. He made unique hand-colored illustration of his books. So, and marketed and sold his books directly to his audience. So, in short, self-publishing hero / fearless DIY hustler. Okay lah. Sorry siya. May sound. Okay lah. Tag life. William Blake represent. So next. So that's all. Thank you. Any questions?
All right, thank you so much, Sir Eric. And now, if you have any questions for Sir Eric, yeah, please approach the mic stand.
I have one question regarding sa zine lyricism. So, you mentioned a while ago that there's a community. Is there a particular, isa sa Cebu lang, is there a particular genre or form or subject na mawa'y piring ma-produce sa zine, literary, baron?
It's usually divided, but ang two commons are literary and art zines, like mga drawings and comics as well. What comics zines.
Thank you.
Alright, I think that will be all. Sir, can you promote your Pawn Records? What is it about?
Basically, currently publisher. We are a publishing group, but mostly not strictly on books and literary materials, but we also release records, band albums on the side, and yeah, mostly ang kuhan kay mga katong pa-discover ng mga writers or artists.
Well, sir, my question is, can maduol ba sila mo or ikaw masaya ka mo rin maduol?
Both. Usually, sila yung maduol and then matag sila manuscript balon or sa MP3 or kanta. Ang paminaw, kinato, publish. And also, nasa kayo ng artist na namin common friend balon or sila maduol doon. I introduce myself, this is what I do, and then ako sila yung nag-proposal, kinato sila.
Last, sir, how would we contact you for the Pawn Records? If ever someone here is interested.
You can find us on Facebook, Pawn, just look for Pawn, and then nasa my website, pawnrecords.com, na contact us page dito. Or you can add me on Facebook, sir, directly with Galleria.
Alright, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. A round of applause for Mr. Eric Tutok. Thank you, sir. So again, to recap, I'd like to invite you on stage for a picture. So if you're interested in being a published author, you can approach Mr. Eric Tuban, or you can visit his page, Facebook page at look for Pawn, and they also have a website, pawnrecords.com. For our next speaker, he is a prolific writer of both prose and poetry in Cebuano. He has won numerous literary awards, including the prestigious Don Carlos Palanca Memorial Award, and currently he writes for Sunstar Weekend. Am I right, sir? And he is known in the literary world as Mayor Lam. And let us all welcome Mr. Lamberto Sibalias. A round of applause.
Mayo buntag na itong tanan. Kay buntag man ron. Kay siya 50. Writing literature in Cebuano for the children of today. After reading in my email a letter from Nino Agustin in Loyola of the Cebuano Study Center, University of San Carlos, inviting me to talk about children's literature in Cebuano in contemporary setting. I immediately replied that I would be very glad to discuss the children's literature in Cebuano during the Pingkian National Literature Month celebration today. I like the topic as an advocate for the development of children's stories, nursery rhymes, or poems written in the Binisayan Sinubuano. Story for children is Sugilanong Pagbata. Nursery rhyme is Binatang Garay. Remembering that an essay, Malaysay, of mine in children's literature had done in one of the Bathalanong Halat sa Dagang Bathalat Cebu literary contest, I rummaged through my files in the steel cabinet and found nganong sulaton sab ang literaturang pangbata sa pinulungang Sinubuano, which won second prize in 2005. Please allow me to read the essay as it was written in Cebuano language. Here it is. Ang mga magsusulat na Cebuano na nagsulatan, ginamit ang lumad nilang pinulungan sa nangaging panahon, wala tingali makaalinggat na nahitaligamaan nila ang pag-ugmad o pagpalambok sa literaturang pangbata, isip kabahin sa katitigang Binisaya. Kung sila makahimo, di kayo gamay na kasaypanan, mabasol ba usab nato ang mga magbabasa, labi na ang kabataan na dili sa manumbalik sa maong isyo, ang magsusulat o gayon unta ang muhimo sa unang lakad. Unsa ba kinay literaturang pangbata? Sumala ni Series Alabado, usa ka magsusulat ug sakop sa Children's Literature Association of the Philippines. Ang literaturang pangbata mao ang mga sugilanon, balak, nobela, drama, malaysay, o ubang purma na minugna, fiction o tinuod nga hitabo, true story. Kansang mga unod naghisgot sa tanang butang na interesado ang kabataan nagbusog sa ilang una tawhanong panginahanglan, nagbilin sa ilang kaalam, knowledge, o mga mithi, values na nasyonal o universal, moral o espirituhan. Ug sa katapusan, magsilbi nga usa ka inspirasyon o tinugdan sa kasayuran alang sa nagpadayon nilang pagpangita sa maayong kinabuhi na makita diha sa multimedia, pinatik o dili pinatik, sama sa libro, magasin, radyo, telebisyon, sini, pagtawan, stage, o mga plaka. Notabene, ihubad sa tagsulat ikan sa original nga in English, pre-oral translation, lakip na ang mga quotes ni artikulo. O mipuno sigining alabado, ang literaturang pangbata, isulat o giugmad alang sa kabataan sa mga bayong-bayong o dalaginding nag-edad ikan 0 hangtod 20. Ubos sa katitikanon o artistikong sumbanan o iskandalo. Sa yano na itong pagtuo, ang literaturang pangbata mao ang dinatanggaray, nagsiniray, ug ang mga sugilanong bahin sa mga ada o inkantada, fairy tale o mga kasugiran, legend. Santok dayon sa atong huna-huna, sila Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, ug Jack and the Beanstalk. Mubalos sila Maria Makiling, si Malakas at si Maganda, Juan Tamad ug Bernardo Carpio. Sa mga binatang garay, hinumdum sa kita. Meron sa kita sa Jack and Jill, ang Humpty Dumpty, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, uban pa. Sa kabaguan, ang buwa, sa sini, ang Toy Story, Harry Potter, Shrek, uban pa. Sa telebisyon, matanaw sab ang mga sugilanon sa Once Upon a Time o Mara Manawari. Apan ang hisgutan pulos in English o Tinagalog. Alang sa literaturang pangbata nga pinasaya, aduna kita'y mga persona kung karakter angay paila hadto sa atong kabataan. Usa si Maria Cacao. May libro nga pangbata ang nasulat bahin kaniya apan sinulat sa Tinagalog sa usa ka magsulat nga Tagalog. Doon na say napatik nga librong pangbata bahin sa usa ka batang Cebuanon kay tagamuktan nga napatik ni adtong 1965 naguluhan o makisig na mo'y ngalan sa bata. Apan sa likwaot kaayo palang dumon na ang magsusulat sa Tagalog ug ang libro isulat sa English. Ang tagsulat ng libro mao si Gima Cruz kanhi Miss International. Dili ba ngay unta usa ka Cebuanong magsusulat ang nagsulat sa maong libro? Ang literaturang pangbata dugang pa ni Alabado gabahin sa tanang katitikan kung literatura sa usa ka nasod o dapit. Lakip na ang literatura alang sa mga dagko o hamtok. Adult literature. Sumala po ni Emilio Jacinto con Rio Alma, National Artist for Literature. Kalabot sa pagsulat sa literaturang pangbata. Kinahanglan makatun kita ikan sa diwa sa atong katigulangan na mao'y nagugba sa atong mga kasugiran ug sugilanon sa kanhiay. Ang pagbuhig usab sa mga daang sugilanon sa katawan, sumala sa sugyot sa usa ka pundok, dili makapabuka sa mga mata sa kabataan sa bagong sitwasyon. Sa laing bahin, dili kita angay na magdungog lang sa uban sa kagahapon. Apan kinahanglan sa na dili kita magmahuyang sa bagong panahon. Padayon ni Almari, ang literaturang pangbata kinahanglan pahimangno sa atong kabatanunan bahin sa kalibutanong mga kakulian, global pitfalls, ug sa kasalanan sa kasaysayan, historical scenes. Apan kinahanglan usab na kini mupalambok sa mga binhi sa paglaom o pagtungo sa paglampos. Paglaom na nagbase sa kamamugnaon sa tao aron magmadaogon. Pagtuo na siya mulampos, inabagan sa scientificong pagbukay, scientific analysis. Hatagan nato mga damgo ang atong mga anak, padamguha sila sa kagawasan, hustisya, kahiusahan o kalinaw. Ining mga damgo, maoy mo palibon kanila batok sa mga kalisdanan na tingali atong ikabilin kanila. Sa pagkakaroon, wala pa'y matawag na hinibos na lawas sa literaturang pangbata ang ginisayang Cebuano, Body of Children's Literature. Isip kabahin sa kinatibukang literatura niini. Angay pumpunon sa mga libro ang mga mananaog tingin sa sinulatay sa sugilanong pangbata o binatang garay na binasya. Gikan sa Cultural Center of the Philippines, Women in Literary Art Cebu, o sabat halanong halad sa dagat. Puno ang nangapatik sa Bisaya Magazine o sa Sunstar sa Punta. Usa ka maayong tilimadon sa pagpagkabana sa literaturang pangbata, mao ang pagkapatik sa usa ka libro na naguluhan o matod pa sa lula ni Pulas. Sa tuig 2009 o 2009, nangitambayayungan sa Sunstar Publishing Incorporated o Smart Communications Incorporated. May 11 kakasugiran gikan sa lain-laing lungsod sa probinsya sa Cebu. Angay silang pasalamatan unang tungo, volume sa sugiranong pagbata. Angay ngayon na sulaton palambuon sa ang literaturang pangbata sa binisayang Cebuano aron mahingpit ang atong kagalingong katitikan. That was my essay. In my case as a writer of children's stories and verses, I write themes developing the child's virtues and good character like honesty, courage, pity, faith in God, and love for nature. My story, Hinday Siloy o Kanyang Awit, only story for children contest conducted by Willa in 2003. The characters are Cebuano girls. Maya Garcia, Tamsi, Punay, etc. There was a singing contest at the lagoon. Hinday Siloy won it because of their beautiful voice and her song that she dedicated to her best friend Maya, who had been shocked by listening Shut Up and Go. The story introduced to the children the names of the bird. In another story, si Pungkoy ang ulang bisikleta. Pungkoy wanted to have a real bicycle just like his friend had. But his father was only a family driver and could not afford to buy him one. even in second hand. So he shined shoes and did errands for his neighbors and saved what he earned in a coconut shell bag. One day he heard his father telling her mother that Mrs. Rose lost her gold ring. His father told Pungkoy to go with him to Mrs. Rose's house to clean her rose garden of weeds. While uprooting the weeds, he found the gold ring. He thought of selling it in order to buy a red bicycle. But his conscience advised him not to do it. Mrs. Cruz was his father's employer and his friend's mother, so he gave back to Mrs. Cruz the ring. Mrs. Cruz was very happy and asked Pungkoy what he wanted as a reward. He told Mrs. Cruz that he wanted a red bicycle, just like his friend. His friend was the son of Mrs. Cruz. She let him give the bicycle to Pungkoy, who was an honest boy. This story was published in January 1995, issue of the Bisaya magazine. It won first prize 10 years later in Sugilarong Pambata Contest at Halat Cebu in 2005. Panamilit ni Dakot ni the story of Pungkoy and the bicycle tells the child reader that honesty can be rewarded. Panamilit ni Dakolkol also won the first prize in the Sugilarong Pambata category of Halat Cebu in 2011. It was about a boy who found a turtle on the beach when he went with his mother to gather shellfish for bayan. He brought it home and took good care of it. He named it the Kulkul and gave him leftover rice. He gave it grass soup. The turtle grew big. The father wanted to kill it on the boy's birthday. For him, his father and his two friends sumsuman with tuba. He tried and begged his father to spare the turtle because her mother had already killed 2 chickens. But his father insisted. When his father was about to kill the turtle with a knife, the boy grabbed the turtle and ran to the beach. He waded in the water and at a distance from the shore, he threw the turtle away. It swam back towards the ocean. It swam towards the ocean but turned back as if to beg for goodbye. Then it swam towards the ocean. This story teaches the children the love for animals, especially the endangered species. Lastly, let me talk about my story, ang bagong kabanog ni Biboy. Taon last year's Quintong Pambata in the Cebuano Catipay. The contest conducted by the Lasal University, Manila. The contest was titled Sa Ugoy ng Wika, Patimpala sa pagsulat ng Quintong Pambata. The story was about a boy who was making a new kite because his first kite was weak and had not withstood the wind. The kite string broke and it went down a tree and hung. His father saw him and told him to make a framework of his new kite strong. When the new kite was finished, he and his friend went to the table to fly the kite that was patterned after the bird hook. There, another boy, this boy, who was Biboy's rival in class honors, challenged him to that kite fight. Biboy refused because he only wanted to enjoy flying his kite, but this time his kite that was patterned after the fish went after the kite. Ligoy tried this kite to stay away from Mr. Kite. The other boy keep on steering Ligoy's kite. Ligoy could no longer hold his timber. He let his kite soar towards Mr. Kite. Mr. Kite was turned and moved onto the two. The other boys also described by shouting, "Nag-isda, dahil sa Cebuano." That night, he told his father about it. "You know, your new kite is strong," his father told him. "I hope you will do better next school year in class." His father remarked, "Yes, son, during the last recognition day, you will take honors, Mr. Buster. If you study hard enough to go through one trip, maybe next year you could get him in the honor." Ligoy promised his parents to do good. The next school year, Ligoy studied his lessons diligently. He did not go with his friends, keeping class, to swim in the sea. And he did not go with them to gather wild guavas in the hills of Indians. When recognition day came, Ligoy was third and was arrested. Aside from the stories for children, I have also written verses for children. Pinatanggaray. A few of it were published in San Stars of Balota during the time when Ernesto Lariosa was the Cebuano language consultant and literary editor. In 2005, I wrote a poem for children titled "Si Pungkoy Ang Tayaon Nga Lata." I submitted to the regular bala category as there was no category for children's poetry. It won third prize. In 2015, Dr. Christian Hata Delpin and Mrs. Geraldine Gregorio Soledad, editors of the University of San Carlos, editors of Pagkaton sa Cebuano Pinulungan, Volume 3, asked me to poems for children to be included in the book intended for grade 3 under DepEd MTV MFA, Mother Tongue Based Multilingual Education. I gave them Ako Ang Batang Buutan and Bango Na Dulong, Bango Na Inday. Let me read the first one as a sample of my poetry for children. Ako ang batang buutan. Ako usa ka batang buutan. Nagmahal sa akong ginikanan. Bisag unsay isugo nila kanako ang pagsugot. Kalipay ko nako. Ako usa ka batang buutan. Dili ligoy sa eskwelahan. Homework himo sa balay. Karon dili kasaban ni tatay. Ako usa ka batang buutan. Mutambong sa misa sa simbahan. Mag-ampo sa Diyos gamhanan. Unta kalinaw. As I have observed in recent years, up to now, there is not much writing done in children's literature in Cebuano, either in the national magazine or in local tabloids. I have observed, as a literary editor of some stars of Tutok, that stories and poems contributed by writers deal mostly on adult love, rhyme, and horror fantasy. Salamat.
So, anyone who wants to ask any questions about children's lit from Mr. Carla?
Your naday ko ito. Kabahin sa... sige. Nabay mga sa mga workshops makapa-encourage pa sa mga Cebuano writers na mas masuwat masusuwat ang kadaghanan kabahin sa children's literature. Nabay mga workshop or mga programs karon nga i-advertise sa media para maka-inganyo o mga manunulat sa children's literature sa Cebuano.
Murag dili kayo makuha ng children's literature. Murag di ko alam murag na-generalize na para sa adult dito. Pero nailumdum ko sa writing hero ko sa Siliman atong 1968. Doon ay naisgutan ko ng children's literature. Doon na gani huwag ko malimot sa iyang ngalan nga Koreano nga writer sa children's literature, si Yang Hyo. Kuhan siya, author sa mga children's book. Isa siya sa diniscuss sa dito. Pero sa uban ng mga workshop nga akong napilan, Emilio Jacinto, sa uban na usagan ko sa mga panelists, dili kayo may sagutan ng children's literature. Murag, ikuha na lang nila ba? Kuha na nga, usa ko sa advocate yun nga, kuha na ang children's literature. Yeah. Ngayon ganitong sa unang panahon sa ang Batalat kay ang founder sa Batalat si Dr. Melgalito Aligo sa Galleria. Part siya kay concern po siya sa mga uban mga genre sa Muntis ba? Hindi lang sa Balak, Milano, Mula Isay, Artikulo. Dihay mga pila katuig na nangita siya sponsor para sa Suwilanong Bata.
Any more questions for Mirlam? Bahin sa children's lit. Bitaw sa akong na-obserbahan, sir, kay nihit bitaw ang children's lit niya. Nami kaya classmates sa literature nga where ganahan mag-study sa children's lit in Cebuano and unsay mo suggest nimo sir more kinsay mga authors or kana manunulat imong masuggest nga mong basahon bahin sa children's lit aside sa inyo imuhang mga answer imuhang mga words pero kinsa pa yung mga manunulat sa children's lit
uban nga magsulat og mga
sabi sa Binisaya.
murag din akong kakuan hindi kong katubanan. Pero naay kuan si Ernesto Leriosa, suwan siya na siya o kuan children's story. Ganit doon na siya ay sigilanon nga na-apil atong ipatik sa Santa Cruz nga atong sa title sa iyang kuan konto ka nasugilanon ito nga siya yan nag-translate ito in English sa Santa Cruz na dito yung sa kasugilanon nga titulan o kuha na hingigo kanto children's literature niya mo ay title sa gani sa libro nga ibatik sa Santa Cruz crackshot no? Katong
okay sir, we'll check that. Apat na siyang i-kuan na. Salamat kayo sir, your any more questions? Okay, photo up. Okay, sir. For the next speaking about, or he will be talking about performance poetry here in Cebu. And I'd like to introduce him as he's a former faculty member of the University of Southern Philippines Foundation. He was a graduate of Bachelor's of Arts in Linguistics and Literature in the University of San Carlos, and currently taking up his Master's in Literature in the same university. He is a member of MAD, or Mga Anak sa Dagang, and in other words. Please help me welcome Mr. Julius Cesar Cudera.
Good afternoon. Kung may hapon, manghigala, or kamay-kamay na may tarong hapon na. I was given the task to actually talk about the performance poetry scene of in literature in Cebu. Now, supposed to be I was going to do 2 performance poetry today, but okay, I'll just give a bit of the time and talk about what the current status is of performance poetry is, rather, in Cebu, what the current status is. Now, in the previous years, so to speak, before the spoken word poetry madness sort of went into enormous proportions, or before people started actually going to coffee shops and perform poetry, there was a sense of performance poetry alive in literary gatherings held by local groups, most notably WILA, the Women in Literary Arts. We have Bathalad, and now more recently with MAD, kami mga anak sa dagang, or the children of the pen. Now, in a sense, when it all started, performance poetry was really the meat, or the main genre that was being pursued by most of the poets. People actually went up on stage and performed their poetry. But as we transition over to the current generation, we see a lot more people doing poetry readings instead, where people actually brought a piece of paper in front of them and then read the poem that they have written. However, though, there is a current resurgence or a re-emergence of the practice of performing one's poetry as it should be. Kaya yun ana, magiging ko na ang balak kaniyon sa una. I-perform magiging ko na nasa tubangan ng malay papil-papilay. Kuyaw nila. To tell you honestly, most of the writers now, I think, or most of what plagues most of the writers now is the fact that not all of us are able to communicate or speak or use the language as beautifully as we should or we could in terms of writing in Sebwano. Ngano ba kaha ni tungod siguro ni sa atong naandan ba sa eskwelahan nga gamiton permi kanunay English, so wanang kadaghanan ka nato, or if in terms of writing poetry or performing poetry in Cebuano, or magkalisod-lisod yun na may. There was this one instance I did while I was still studying as in college, where I tried to perform poetry. Tried being the key word. I would like to emphasize on that. Tried. Nganong tried man kay bis kang saon ako suway, di man gyud nako kayang akton ang mga naaktan sa mga niaging mga nagunan ako. Di gyud nako kayang sundo ng ilang gibuhat bitaw. Yeah, so supposed to be today, I'm supposed to only perform 2 poems rather. So, the first one is entitled #Pangadji. So, mangadji sa tamang higala. Sangan sa Instagram, sa Facebook, o sa Espiritu sa Twitter. Amen. Internet, ani ako karon nangadji kanimo. Dungga ang akong mga hangyo. Hinaot hatagan nimo daghang likes ang akong bagong selfie sa Facebook. Aron makahibaw pa ko naapay naghatag. Naghatag tagad sa akong kinabuhi. Sampi ko karon nga unta tuhito nimo ang makasing-kasing sa akong mga followers sa Twitter. Aron ilang i-retweet ang akong mga tweets. Tugutan mo unta nga managhan ang akong followers sa Instagram. aron mas managhan pa makahibaw sa kanindot sa akong kinabuhi. Nga gitago sa mga pahiyom nga makita ra sa halakbuhay nga naa karon sa imong gahom. O babati ko ang ilang gugma sa ilang pag-heart sa akong mga uploads. Kinitanan gipangayo ko sa ngalan sa imong anak nga si social media. Amen. So that was the first poem. The second poem is actually a translation. So to tell you honestly, I'm also part of a translators group here in Cebu. We translate English to Sebwano to English and vice versa, hopefully, so in the future. But this one is actually a poem by Paul Arias. Ang title sa poem kay Kasanayan lang ang pagpatay. So, muna akong pag-translate sa iyang balak. Ang pagpatay ba? Hindi rin na sa anad. Murag sa tikikot. Kung sa ulan, sa sinugdanan, lulun pa ka. Di pa ni mo kayang hunahunahong labayan o hapakon ang tikik nga naghinuktok sa inyong atok. Nga murag bagpin nakatungtong sa agtang sa mga santos sa altar. Iyaw mo murag na yung humbong ni mo gwingon. Ayaw patay. Apan, susama sa ubang butang, ang pagpatay, makatunan pa po. Labi nagmaminaw ka sa mga tao, kay bawag sa akin. Naamduhan ako sa akong uyuan, kung sa akong pagtirador o sinilas, paglukot o labakara, dayong litikan, ang tikik na naghinuktok sa atok. Igatagak, dayong bukdon, aron tumban, aron di makaikis. Samtang hinay-hinayon dayon o tipok ang tipok, ibuk aton sa tigil mo nakatunog, dayon tagak. Nindot siya nga pagtuon, apan di mo makita, imurang malunggan ang pagputok-putok sa tibuok kabukugan ng isting-tingin di na makakasisip pa. Igabos ting Pasko, ang pindot kayo, nagkagpabutok. Imon ako na hinigot sa libintador, nga pabutok, aron maglupad ang mga simon o kiko. Maubitaw ang pagpatay usahay pukulsan. May nalanggani na ay bintana o puntahan ng tapang gamay sa pagpatay na gusto di tuyuon. Inana rin ang pagpatay ba? Kundi ako, nailaing na buhat. Kundi karon basikon niya. Pero kay Bong, ang nakapahatag na ko gilabing kalipay sa kong pagbuhat. Niyani mga butanga. Kaya gamatorang samtang akong ipatay. Kamusap, nananaw ra. Pananaw lang mo.
Okay, before I begin, I would like again to thank Robinson's Galleria, the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, Cebuano Study Center, mga anak sa dagang, and also in other words, for making this event possible. Alright, for our next speaker, she is a faculty member of the Department of Communications, Linguistics, and Literature of the University of San Carlos, a member of the Women for Literary Arts in Literary Arts, Cebu, and currently she is a PhD candidate for English Literature in the University of San Jose Recoletos. She was a FIGO Fellow and published her poems and short stories in Bisaya magazine. Please help me welcome Ms. Leon Jane Raman. A round of applause.
So my task for this talk, or this afternoon, my talk is about the state of contemporary Cebuano women writing. So I'll give a little, history of the Cebuano women writing, who are our writers, our trailblazers, our predecessors, and before I give the state or the condition of the present Cebuano women writing, from styles, to voices, to tones, we have the characteristics, the activities, and the awards, and what are the published books recently. So, the title of my talk for this afternoon is In Praise of Cebuano Literary Matriarchs, or Literary Mothers. writers. As I said before, I go with the present Cebuano women writers. Let me give a little of our history of our Cebuano women writers. So these are our trailblazers, our mothers in Cebuano women writing. So okay, let me start with Maria Cabigon. I hope you're familiar with Maria Cabigon. So I took time actually in our history, especially in Cebuano, to really notice the participation of women writers. In fact, it was until 1940s pa nga nailhan na naade ay manuwat na mga Cebuano women writers. Imagine. But before 1940s, as I said, around 1940s, mga post-war pa, tumawa nga to ang mga tingog sa kababainhan sa atong mga panuwat, naanatay matawag nga mga manlalaban sa pinulungan o panuwat. Usa ni ini si Maria Cabigon. But si Maria Cabigon, she was acknowledged later part na after the war because she first wrote in pen name with the use of male pen name. Mauna ang wala na ako nasuwat. Yes, but she's using a male pen name to reveal her identities, and we know the reasons why women are using pen names, diba? To conceal their identities, because of course women before are put into edge, they're always on shadow in many things. So wala pa sila ibang tuso nga mo laban, mo pagawa sila mga tingog and mo express especially. So, Maria Cabigon, aka Maninkaria, so only 1940s pa siya pagawa sa iyang true name, si Maninkaria. So, she was known for her column in Bisaya, the Pani di Maninkaria, and she was born and raised in Karkar, the famous town in Cebu for her writers. She has written more than 100 plus poems and stories. Just an update, kani mga panuwat ni Maninkaria karon, kay i-collect na siya, and then it will be translated, yes, for publication and for the audience. Not only her short stories and poems, but also some of her columns, right? Short stories only, okay, for now, okay. But her works were collected na for audience. Okay, just a sample of a column of Maninkaria, just to see what is the voice of women before. So during the time, very moralistic, that's Maninkaria, that's Maria Cabigon, the way of writing, medyo moralistic and didactic. So sa iyang column, ang mura siya may kulas nga tambagi ako sa karon. O kanang unsa nang sa drama sa hapon? Yes? Ha? Namuhatag po o tambag? Yes, maunang role ni Maria Cabigon during her time. So, nainagpatambag niya. Manding, ako usap ka lalaking ninyo nga may itsay byuda, or that's kabit. You try to check the language during that's itsay. Kay dili man gayud, malilong ang mga buhat, ang akong asawa, mihilap diha sa pagkasayod sa akong pagluib. Ang panagsaon man ini, nabuang man ako sa byuda. So, ang iyang kabit, byuda pa yun. It's okay, but it's okay nga manta, diba? But byuda, kaya walay responsibility ba? But I siya, minyo mang good. So, kung sa i-reply niya, very biblical po ni si Maninkaria. So, makita na itong voice sa usa ka manunulat o kung sa siya mutambag. Severino, sa sakop ni Satanas, ana ang misulod sa imong ulo. O tingali, nga dugmo ko niya ang imong utok. Nga nang ipalabi ni mo kanang itsay o kanang kabit. Sa panahon niya sa imong kalisod, kanang itsay ni mo mangkunaw lang sama ni Pilato. So if you notice, she used some allegories, diba, from the Bible. So that's the nature of writing or the voice of Maninkaria. So next writer, only exclusive to Cebuanos. If you try to check our history, the same, of course, experiences of our women writers, across the world, di ba? Later part na sila, later part na na-notice ang ilang participation in many things, not only in writing. So same in Cebuano. So, kaya siya common ni siya nga issue. So, yung sa nila yun sa man of course, fight sa itong mga women writers. Ang ikalawa na po nga writer na introduce, si Cleopatra Quijano. So, sa gimon ko pa, magamit sila o male pen name. So, she used Gerardo Larga Vista. Muna yung pen name. Lalaki kayo, no? She's considered a feminist writer in a way that, yes, she's the mother of Cebuano women writings because she started many voices in her writing. So, she represents different voices of women in her writing. So, naiusa ka literary critic and the translator of Cleopatra, niingon nga, kani mga sinuwat ni Cleopatra, doon ako na the sweet and their sweetness, of course, that's associated, of course, with women. She's awarded by CCP, and with her famous collection of short stories that's Himayang na Banhaw. So, moving forward to our next writer, of course, very familiar si Estrella Alfon, diba, in our Philippine literature. You know that she's a Cebuana. Kung sa may famous work na nabasahan ninyo, The Magnificence. Sa giingon ko pa, dili ulahi sa atoa ang out-of-the-box writers, especially our women writers. Kani silang duha si Estrella Alfon and Alina Espinamor, they started that kind of voice. Estrella Alfon became very famous because of her controversy. Are you familiar of her controversy? Because of this famous novel titled Fairy Tale for the City. This is quite obscene. It was actually didispatcha na siya sa mga library. I don't know to all libraries, but yes, ironically, I found a copy in one of the religious universities here because it's part of our literature. So wala nila gitago pa nga work ni Estrella Alfon. As I said, very controversial ni siya because of the theme na dili pa accepted that time. That's the sexuality. Because this is coming to age, igamit siya nga tuog ka ng batankon na medyo, yes, it talks about sexuality of that batankon nga, yes, the coming into age. Estrella Alfon moved to Manila for her studies during the war to continue her studies. So, paggawas na iyang controversy, medyo ni-stop siya og suwat o short story. And that's why she shifted to play. So, she became famous to plays like this. The Losers Keepers, Strangers Rise, Beggars with Patches of Menus. Her works were published in famous Philippine Free Press, Philippine Magazine, Philippine Herald. Kani siya nga mga magazines, mo niyang mga naka-discover sa ato ang national artist usual. Like again, di ba? Very famous na. So kung ma-publish ka in that very prestigious magazine, so you're really great and boom nationally. So she became a professor at the same time in UP Diliman. So next writer, sa giingon ko pa, duha ko sila, di ba? So si Lina Espinamor. So she died 2000. So daghan pag yung mga writers na to karon nga nakasinati ani Ma'am Lina Espinamor, who became a protege of Lina Espinamor, like Cecilia Manguera Brainard and many more. Daghan pa kaayo. During our interviews sa project later na ako introduce, daghan kayong nickname like Irma Quizon, the late Ma'am Irma Quizon, nakasinati pa sila ni Lina Espinamor. And many more, daghan pa kaayong mga living writers na nakaabot ni Lina Espinamor. So, from her writings, matawag na ito nga na-influence sila somehow. Not only with the voice, the tone, but also the styles in writing. Lina Espinamor is also a bilingual writer, so she first wrote in Cebuano, later in English. So far siya ang highly anthologized abroad because her works were translated. Usa na si Ma'am Dr. Hope Sabanpanyu, who translated mostly of her works, collections. And one way to mas mabasa pa na siya abroad, diba? To translate it in English. She's known as a novelist. Next writer. These are her awards. Pan Pacific, Southeast Asia, we have the Home Fields, Dawat Kuman sa Halaga ni Balagtas, and many more. Next writer. Okay, the late Ma'am Irma Quizon. Kinsa may nakaabot ni Ma'am Irma Quizon. She died last year. Yes, very famous editor of Sunstar. She's a novelist, essayist, and also a poet. She's one of the founding members of WILA, or Women in Literary Arts, the only women writers group in the Philippines. So, kanang iyahang i-found or founded na group, matawag na ito nga, I'll talk later more of WILA later. So Irma Quizon became famous of this only one novel she wrote, that's Women in the House. If nakabasa mo ani mas na novel of her, you can hear different voices of women. Ako sa katabang, and then the wife, and then the sister, I forgot. Basta tulo na siya kababae sa usa ka balay lang. And then they share, of course, their struggles, their pains. Kaya maayon kayo pagka-narrate and then pagka-represent ni Ma'am Irma Quizon ba. Considering the shift of voices, it's hard, di ba? In one text, the focus is 3 women. Nga, ang pag-shift na, medyo lisod na siya. So that's how versatile writer Ma'am Irma Quizon is. So aside from her novel, known po siya sa iyang essays about Cebu. The time of the year, we have the Vital Flow and then the Cebuano. Her only collection of stories, The Homecoming and Other Stories. Okay, next writer, Cecilia Manguera Brainerd. I have a personal touch of Ma'am Cecilia Manguera Brainerd. Isa may nakakita ni Ma'am Brainerd during Sibulit Fest. Yes, I first met Ma'am Brainerd when I was first year in college. Yes, she gave a talk about creative writing with her book, Fundamentals of Creative Writing. And since then, di na ko siya makalimtan. I kept on finding her works, stories. You can find it in National Bookstore and many more. Sila man ang dali kay pangitaon na libro so far. She's not bilingual, though she wrote only in English. But ang iyahang writings acknowledged by Sebwano. So these are she's awarded by many groups, good, including the Capitol. We have USC. USC gave out an award to her also, and many more international. Mostly of her writings talks about the life of women in abroad. So we call it diaspora. So if you try to read of Cecilia Manguera, mo na niyong makuha. If you're interested of the works, the life of women abroad, so you read Cecilia Manguera Brainerd. Okay, now before I go with the only women writers group in the Philippines, the WILA, I'll now go with the unsa naman ang mga timo, estilo o mga tono sa mga panuwat sa atong kababainahan karon. So sugdan nato kang John Berry. So kaning This book of John Berry, published last 2016, together with Cindy Velasquez, murag nag-upan na sila og tuig. Naguna lang si Jonah, then followed by Cindy Velasquez. Kung makita nato or masinati nato when you read of our writings, what did you notice of our language? Medyo kinaraan. Di ba? There are many writers, including me, myself, though I'm young, I use the kinaraan, the deep language because I find it literary, which is wrong. Which is wrong, ha? We have that initial manggod na kung lalong, mo na siya literary, di ba? Mo na accepted. But through these writers like Jonah Berry, Cindy Velasquez, and many more, medyo iusab nila ang ato ang panlantaw sa ato ang lingwahe. Wala sila gamit og the deep deep language. Ilaha kay everyday usage of language and very the true languages of our saning kani ato ang mga common nga mga tao. For example, kaning alang sa nasaab ni Jonah, daghan siya og mga alang kang so the poems dedicated to specific people like Tem Adlawan, to her fellow writer like Johannes Arong, to her relatives, sa iyang pagumangkot, sa iyang mama, sa iyang kaugalingon. So usa ko na siya pa estilo po sa panuwat nga na-observar na ako sa atong contemporary na alang-alang. You notice it? And also, John Berry uses a technique nga we call it ars poetica. Aside from the themes about life, about love, about loss, about pain, the theme about writing. So, pag una nato, no, imagine a poem talks about poetry or a poem that talks about writing. So, it's the self-reflexive form of art. So, usa sa na-observar na ako with our contemporary writer. Unsa pa may naa sa contemporary in terms of style, yes, the use of reverse and also the prose poem. Grabe na kaayo, wala na nang the rhyme with strict syllabic count, wala na di na maoy sugdanan sa atong pamalang karon, di ba? Sa atong contemporary women writers. Kanidi ay dili lang pod pulong ang gigamit niya sa pag-communicate. Aduna po'y kahilo. For example, I'll read a poem of her, nganong magdugay ko sa glassware. Diba in kitchen section, diba there's glassware section. So, ngano, muna tayo siyang poem. Let me read, very short. Magdugay ko sa glassware section. Usa ka tanghaga ang kahilom. Sa naglaray ng mga baso, kay kun matandog kini mukagay. Very short. And it's a poem already. Why? Do I need to explain it? Yes, it's a poem. Wala na ito mga rhyme scheme. The strict syllabic count. Very, very understandable and language, di ba? Walay deep ato, di ba? Makasabuta. Unsa may nakabalang ato, there's boom after nakahilom, di ba? Mura mo sa katao, kung tandugo mo ang glassware, di ba? Ayaw paabutang mukagay ang kahilom sa katao. So, that's my interpretation of the poem. Moving on to another, yes, contemporary women writer, Cindy Velasquez, with her first collection, Lawas. Feminista kayo, no? Because this collection is divided into 4. The life of a woman. Sa maning the periods of woman. We have mga mata sa bata, sa pusod sa dalaga, taguangkan sa inahan. What's taguangkan? What's taguangkan? Yes? Cervix? Cervix? Unsa? Palukot tayo, wala sila kailang taguangkan. Asa man tayo nag-ilaw para sa asa man tayo tao. It's matres sa tao, sa babae at sa guangkan. And then the last is kabukugan sa tiguang. So, matod pa ni Marjorie Vasco, another Cebuana writer, a senior, yes, a mentor of Cindy Velasquez, sa iyahang pasiuna or forward, ang bala ko ni Cindy Velasquez, or ang bala ko aduna ko ni lawas, ug adunay kalag. Ang kainit sa lawas sa bala, ana kanunay na malandong ang kalag. Natumo, na ang kainit sa lawas sa bala, aduna kunoy na malandong nga kalag. So, the poetry of Cindy Velasquez has body and soul. So, of course, the body, the words, even the periods, diba? The spaces, but what is the soul of her poetry? Silence. Mga kahilom sa kinabuhi sa babae. Di ba, gihatag na kung upat ka kategorya according sa book niya, so maupad to. Akong na-observe ni Cindy Velasquez in her styles, the visual poetry. We're familiar with visual poetry, though this flourished earlier in different countries, but later pa siya sa atuan ni flourish. So matawag na ako nga usa sa mga nigsugod ani si Cindy Velasquez. For example, sa iyang poem nga Nawong. Kung makita ninyo, forma po Nawong. Kisa may na ay libro ani? Wala. Basta, okay. Kung ako magod siya i-copy sa PowerPoint, pag-uba magod siya, so we call it visual poetry. Take time actually. Basta ang nawong, nagpulma sa ng pulong nawong. Yan na may laing balang din gitawag og dila sa dagat. You try to notice the visual of the poetry. Ni purma baruto. Diba? Napoy balak siya diri nga giuluhan og pusod. Na purma pod og pusod. Yan napoy balak siya din nga the glass hour. Dedicated to her fellow poet, Quilantang. So, ang forma po sa bala, glass hour po, the form. So, it's a style in writing. Kani, mas ganahan kay ko aning na poem niya. Ang title, Matching Type. You're familiar with matching type, diba? In exam. Yes. For example, sa number 1, kasing-kasing. So, ikaw magbasa, ikaw mo'y mo takdo unsay kasing-kasing sa imuha. Na letter A dire. For example, ang choices ay, these are the words ha. Kasing-kasing, tiyan, tiil, mata, kamot. For letter A, unsay kasing-kasing. Depende na mo ha. Kung ang imong tubag sa kasing-kasing. Para na ako, letter D. Unsay letter D dire. Hilumong higala, manigid kanunay sa imong anino hangtod ugma. Itudluan ka sa mga kahibulungan sa paguban ug sa pag-inusara. So, mauna akong answer sa kasing-kasing. For example, for number 5, kamot. Unsay may gusto niyang letter? Kung i-answer ninyo. You give a letter. Tutob, letter E. Letter B. For kamot, ang tubag nimo, gihiwa sama sa lawas sa manananggal. So, wrong na ka. So, ikaw mo, depende na kung if you go with the literal meaning or the figurative meaning. I find it very innovative yun. That's innovation to our Cebuano writing and poetry, di ba? Asa man mo makakitaan nga panuwan. Gawas atong visual poetry akong giingon. So, daghan kaayo mga innovation na atong mga contemporary women writers. So, sana ato akong giingon, the free verse, the prose poem, we have the use of different voices, the very direct voices, and very straightforward, tenacious, and very bundak, and daghan kaayo, the visual poetry akong giingon, o kani siya, unsa kitawag ani? Yes? Unsa kitawag ani? No, it's considered visual, di ba? Because kung ikaw, because the form or what's this? The form has bearing to its meaning. So, matawag to ni natong visual poetry. So, moving on, so kung may nakalimutan na akong Cindy ha, in terms of styles. Okay, mauna to. Okay, other books published recently. We have Falling on Quiet Water by Maria Victoria Beltran, one of founding members of Willa. So imagine this is a haiku sequence composing of 153 haikus. So naatay ba siyang version woman? Diba siya, diba? Imagine na. But ang iyang atake ani, very reflective ang iyang voices because if you try to look, I read it biographically, if you try it, makakagingon. So usual sa iyang mga symbols, same with the characteristics of a haiku, it uses nature. But the nature, those common only in our country, Philippines or in Cebu. So wala sa siya ng snow, or do haiku siya. So nasa context ng iyang haikus. I find it amazing because of how it is sequenced. Imagine this is my question to our poet, Ma'am Milagros Dumdum. Yung sa niya pag-sequence ba? According ba to when it was written? According ba sa themes? Or na ba siya specific things in mind? Yun sa niya pag-sequence sa iyang poetry. So I find it innovation in our Cebuano poetry also. Okay, lain pa nga, what's this? Book published recently. We have What Distance Tell Us. This is essays, collection of essays by Johanna Michelle Lim. So katong mga nanilibro, di ba? Katong mga laagan, di ba? Is about our archipelago, right? The different islands in the Philippines. From Luzon to Mindanao. Di ba naka-witness siyang mga gera? Yes. Katong nakabasa na or nanikapisa ni, you read more para na sa laagan. Another books, The Winter Lady and Pagsubang sa Bangaw, Pagsidlak sa Buwan. So the two books published together. So usa sa trend sa ato ang Cebuano women writers the sisterhood, the friendship, and to the point ba nga magduman sila og publish. Why? Ano ka ha? Diba one of the problems in our literature is the outlet, the publication. So better, they publish together kay makasave og many things. Di ba makasave og kwarta, the audience, di ba? Ma-maximize ang tanang butang. So that's a technique, di ba, in a writing. So, napanilain mo publish this afternoon na Duhawit. That's by Ma'am Erlinda Alburo and Ma'am Esther Tapia. So, human ako sa last part of my talk, which is okay, I'll give a little about the project. This is what to expect in our writing, So, if you notice, Philippine women writings have been anthologized, di ba? The same way the Cebuano women writings have been anthologized, but never have come out in a video documentary. So that's what I proposed in NCCA, and luckily it was granted. That's why I'm in implementation process. So last 18 and 19, we had a shooting of half of our writers. We have 5 shooting schedules. So humay namin sa 18, 19 so far. These are the progress. Nagawas na nga to ang mga stars, mga bituon sa atong panulat sa mga babay, mga manunulat. So napa may remaining 3. So for a video documentary, what to expect of this video documentary of Cebuano women writings? Their poetics, their aspirations, inspirations. We have challenges and themes. Those who are interested, if you are a researcher, a student, even a writer, you get to know of their styles in writings. For example, there's one question there. Can you summarize your writing process? So, muhatag og writing process ang writer or the Cebuano women writer. Then, for the audience na ma-apply ka niya or ma-copy, or depends on how you use the video. So, this is a project for the meantime. We have a working title na Babayang Sugid. So, wala pa man siya nahuman. Mahuman na siya by end of May. So hopefully, please, atangi. Okay. And that's all for my talk. questions?
We have a mic stand here if you have questions for Ms. Rama.
Hi there. So, as a woman writer, what kind of challenges have you faced?
Okay. Thank you for that wonderful question, Ms. Tiny. Di bitaw, sa pagkatinuod lang, ang pagkababayi sa nakahagit sa panulat. Nga naman, personally, yes, I have encountered challenges, problems, because I am a woman writer. So I stopped for 2 years because of this incident being a woman. Oh my God! That's it, push-ups. Okay. Of course, you'll be dealing with your voices. I need to live life pa siguro, mamundo pa siguro ko experiences, because it's hard. You cannot pretend in writing. You must be honest and direct and sincere. So in my previous writing, I represent women like prostitute, like battered children sexually. So I'm explorative in that kind of theme. So there's a tendency nga mas shape, okay, especially I use women characters in my writings. So as a shape yun na nimo. So it's your personal struggle. At the same time, publication is personal struggle. The writing itself is personal struggle. The editing itself is a personal struggle. Plus the editing, dealing with the writers, dealing with your editors, being a woman is a problem. So, aside from being a woman, arita sa language, I'll not answer you personally na lang ha. So, that's why niadto ko sa panulat na lang ako. So, ako alang tong challenge being a woman na nahagit ko sa panulat. That's why I stopped for 2 years, but I'm here. I'm here and ready to face again. Yes. Aside sa being a woman, let me talk of language. So kung ikaw good nga, if you notice man good sa imong readings, mga kinaraan, there's a tendency na ma-imbibe mo that kind of language, di ba? But if you're a reader for contemporary writers like Johanna Michelle Lim, Cindy Velasquez, Adonis Turado, Michael Opiñeta, so ma-adapt din mo somehow ilang mga styles. So ang tendency mo kung makinaraan ka, the more ka kinaraan, very deep, di ba? Dili na masabtan, dili mo ma-connect ang imong audience because you have this in mind, that's the literary, di ba? That's considered a writing, creative writing. But after knowing those contemporary writers who use daily languages, so mas dali na lang mo ang pagsuwad. So ang struggle siguro with the use of language and your diction and paghibawon sa gid imong timo. Because themes, it depends on your research, it depends on your experiences, dali ra kay na, but finding your own voice, that's a continuous challenge. Okay, I hope I answered your question, Tynes.
Thank you so much about this event because we get to be we get to open our minds to this kind of topics and especially that it was my first time I learned about the past writers, the old writers. So thank you, Ms. Rama. And may request Ms. Rama for a photo op with. For the next speaker, let me introduce her. She finished her degree in psychology at the University of the Philippines, Cebu. She was a writing fellow of the 20th Faigao Writing Workshop, the first UP Cebu Creative Writing Workshop, the first Batalat Cebu's Creative Writers Workshop, and most recently the 2018 Cebu Young Writers Studio. Her poems have been published in New Reader Magazine, Sunstar Weekend, Nomad Quarterly Anthology Volume 2, and the Versus Yolanda Anthology. Please help me welcome to the stage Ms. Alstain Joy Diapan. A round of applause.
I'm so glad that there's barely anyone here. I love it. Actually, I was really nervous when I was asked to come down here because
Well, I'm not one of the best qualified to speak about feature writing, though I have had experience before. So, a little bit about me. My name is Joy Johanna, but you can call me Tiny for short. I prefer Tiny. No, madam, wala miss. Tiny lang, Tiny. Wala miss? I don't like miss. Makes you feel so old and prim. Tiny is fine. By profession, I work online as a news writer. I work for an entertainment, a geek and science fiction news site called, so that's me and that's our site. It's called Epic Stream. I work online, I write news. If you're familiar with Star Wars or Marvel, I write those things online. We get paid relatively well, but our boss is kind of skimpy. I also work for Street Connect. Next 2 slides, please. That's Epic Stream, that's our site, and I work for Street Connect. It's an art publication, so we talk about the graffiti art that you see outside. You see, kita mo sa kaning Ayala, daghang kay graffiti art, ikan sa Bart Brothers, and we write about those. We write about exhibits, gallery exhibits. The next slide, please. That's one of the exhibits that we wrote about last year. Black Crab, he likes to play around with different materials and art. So, niadto siya sa Ifugao kaning para mo study o kaning natural na art form. We talk about that there. And the next slide is, I also write for, I think you guys all know this, Sunstar Weekend. Ako gipanghambog ang mga nindot kayo ng cover sa weekend kay may pagka-arrange nilang Sir Joshua Cabrera o nilang Sir Noel. Very beautiful covers. Now, those are examples of the articles that I've written for weekend. And the next slide, please. Yeah. So, well, even though I've written for a lot of sites before, I was really nervous coming here because, honestly speaking, I'm not as qualified. I don't have as much scholastic experience when it comes to campus journalism. In comparison to maybe some of you here, maybe some of you are editors of your school publication, maybe some of you are dedicated feature writers. I didn't start out that way. It's funny, I didn't start out as a campus writer at all. My forte was poetry. So why am I here? How am I in front of you? How did I end up in this place? Well, by everything that happened to me, it all happened by accident. I started writing because of, I'm sorry, here we go back to the last slide. So, I started writing in Sunstar and in Street Connect because I was into poetry. Poetry was my first love. I found it in college. I joined the creative writing organization called Tinta, and because after a few years after joining, I became their chair, and somebody recommended me to become the editor-in-chief of Street Connect. So that's how I ended up there. The next slide. Funny story. The reason why I got into Sunstar was because of poetry. Facebook friends me sa kaning editor sa una sa daily, si Sir Noel, and then mag-post mga poems. Kaning paano lang ba? Sometimes you need validation, and it's nice to post and share your things online. And so he noticed one of my poems and he said, I'm going back to Weekend. Okay, Weekend, Sunstar Weekend, if you know, it had a dedicated poetry column. Every Sunday, they would publish poems. I think that was back before the early 2000s, siguro. And then when Sir Noel wanted to go back, because he was the editor of Daily, there are 2 sections of Sunstar. There's Daily and there's Weekend. But the name, you already understand what it is. Daily and Weekend. He shifted back to Weekend and he wanted to bring poetry back because poetry is an important part of our culture that we shouldn't dismiss. I was one of the first few poets that he published, and after that, I tried my hand at feature writing. I really didn't know how. I wasn't good at it, but I tried. That's the important thing, you know? Somebody said that fear is the only thing that gets you in the way of your aspirations. So, leap before you look. Okay, so given that I've written for Sunstar Weekend for about 3 years now. I've written for Street Connect for about also 3 years. I've written interviews, event pieces, festivals, and other features for these publications. So I'd like to have the hubris, to say that I can talk a little bit about my experience in feature writing, but just what I can share. So let's start. So, now that I've given you my introduction, what exactly is feature writing? Anybody know? Everybody knows what feature writing is. Some people say it's soft news writing, right? Some people say that it's creative journalism because outside of news is hard journalism. You have to get straight to the point. You have to be prompt. Creative journalism or feature writing is more, you have no limits. I'm sorry. You're not as limited as with news. You have to be more in-depth with feature writing. Other people would describe feature writing as the glossy pages. Glamorous. Yeah, right? You see in there the houses that we can't afford, the food that we can't buy, the beautiful women we can't ban, right? All of the things that we, technically like the lower income masses cannot have, the glossy pages. But aside from that, aside from all the glitz and the glamour, I would like to say, next slide, feature writing is about giving back to the community. It's not just about all of the beautiful things, all of the pizzazz. It's about helping guide the Cebuano people back to themselves. Why? It's like, here are our artists. Next slide, please. Here are our writers. Next, here are our musicians. We want to show to you, showcase Cebu, our people, us. Feature writing is writing, yeah. So I think some of you know the people here. It's Nino, the Spirals, Ala Akbar. We know so much about people from the outside. We know when we talk about we know about Lady Gaga, we know about Taylor Swift, Lana Del Rey. But what about our artists, our musicians, our local talent? So for me, feature writing is a tool to bring back the people to themselves. I guess we can't blame ourselves, 300 years or more of colonial establishment. It's very difficult. We have a very colonial mindset. Whatever isn't ours is great. Whatever is white is good. But that's not necessarily so. We have so many great artists here, so many creative individuals, and yet they don't have the spotlight. They don't get as much exposure because people are too busy looking outside. When are we going to look inwards? And I think that's the responsibility of local papers, to look in and showcase what is ours. Because if we don't, kinsa what? No, I mean it's the same discourse when we write in Bisaya, when we write about Cebu, poetry, short story, the same rin hapon na siya na discussion. Ay, masaan man mo pagsuwat about sa snow, nakatilaw na kag snow, nakakita na ka o kaning daffodil, wala, ba? To make your experience, make your writing more authentic, you write about what you've experienced, what you've seen. Write about home, because these things, Cebu will change. 10 years ago, I'm a true blue Cebuana. I've lived in Cebu all my life. Tagalahog ko. Oh, yung kaning sa una, 10 years ago, daghang kakahoyan sa lahog. Karon sa unsa na kondo na tanan. Gitangtang na ang Hadura, gitangtang na nila ang mga kaning space sa UP. It's not the same. And if you don't write about it, if you don't write about the people who are here, then they'll be lost to history forever. That's why feature writing is an important responsibility. Not just feature writing, any writing. As a writer, you are responsible to your people, not just to yourself. So now that we've done that little litany about how important feature writing and writing in general is, so let's try to give a few tips about writing feature articles. So what does it take to write a good feature? What does it take to write in general? The first thing that you have to do is read. I think some people, they often assume that writing is just, verbally vomiting, mentally vomiting everything in your head, but you cannot write what you cannot say, so you have to read. This quote over here is by William Faulkner. So read everything, trash, classics, good and bad, and see how they do it. Just like a carpenter who works as an apprentice and studies and masters. Read, very important to read. You have to absorb it, then write. If it's good, you'll find out. If it's not, throw it out of the window. It's important. It's important to be a good reader before a good writer. You have to absorb materially. They say that you find your own style and your own voice by looking into others, by reading. It's hard to find your own voice by yourself. And we often project ourselves into the things that we read, and eventually in the years that you write and you read, you find your voice, you find your style. So before you write anything, features or anything else, basa jud. Ay kalimot basa. Next slide, please. Okay. Next is research. This is very important in feature writing. You have to research a lot. You can't write anything if you have nothing to say. Okay, a good feature article doesn't just entertain. You just don't show pictures. It's just not about the gloss. You have to have substance and content. Not just to entertain, but to educate. Tell people about what the artists are trying to do, what kind of music what kind of music the musicians today are trying to play, the bands. You go and you do your interviews. You have to research beforehand. Don't go into battle unprepared. Tunood ba to? Kay kaning example, mag-interview ka. Wala ka kay ba kaning ang imong filmmaker kay dili siya dili day punk iyang roots, pataka na kag-stalking. Pakauaw lang ka, no? So, before you do any kind of feature work, you have to research beforehand. Next. So, I don't think this is quite necessary in all aspects, but I guess if you're operating in the local area, if you're operating as a local, feature writer, you have to build a network. But it will come, the more things that you cover, the more events you cover, you can build, to know your community, you have to take some part in it. So attend gigs, know the people, know who's who, what's what, what's this event, who's holding this event. Don't go blind. Next. Now, most importantly, after you do your research, after you gain experience reading, you do your research, you gather your material, you go out, you do interviews, you ask quotes, gain some substance for your piece. Most importantly, you sit down and you write. It isn't glamorous at all. There are no lights. The lights don't follow you when you write. You just sit there, type away. One of Ernest Hemingway's quotes reads, "There's nothing you're writing. All you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed." It's a very cerebral activity. Usahay kaning kailangan kayo maglangay-langay. Nakikindot na idea. For a poem or for a feature. And then kaning, sige lang na, it's in my head. It's in my head. And so I go out and I play kaning board games or I do the dishes. Yung mawa na siya hinuon. So the best thing to do is you sit down. It's really a habit. You know, I used to be a very dilettante writer before. I would only write when the mood came. Naidakan siguro yung anak no, kung nala sa mood, kung feel lang. And then, I think when I joined WILA, when I joined the Women in the Literary Arts last year, I met Sir Simeon Dumdum. Yeah, Judge Dumdum, the poet. And then he told me na kaning, he tries to write at least one poem every day. Can you imagine that? Every fucking day. It's really hard. It's difficult, you know, to bleed out that many. A poem is very difficult to do, but he writes every day. He told me, whether good or bad, you just write. You sit down and you write. Writing isn't just an art, it's a habit, it's a craft. And you can only write if you actually sit down to do it. You can think of, you know, kaning usahay kay magbasa tag mga listicle sa mga habits sa great writers, no? Na kaning naiuban si Sylvia Plath, she likes to drink tea, or she likes to go on morning walks. Yeah, muna atong sundon-sundon, walk-walk kuno hay. But sure, sige, siguro kaning kita natin lain mga creative processes. But it will not come to you unless you just fucking sit down and write. Very, very important. The next slide is, I like this. Okay, you-post this sa Facebook. You-post this sa Facebook ni Sir Omar Khalid. Oh, finally. You guys know Omar Khalid, right? Si Sir Richard Duratan, he's one of the editors for Freeman. And he's... Ay, Bisaya, naman sa Freeman ang Bisaya, di ba? Ay, the Manila Times, the Manila Bulletin, Yeah, kaning, he just came back recently because he's doing a workshop for Banhalay Kagis, and this is what he wrote today. Take it as an art as you may, but the truth of the matter, it's work. Writing is pure work. You have to sit down and work your way through it. The sentences must be glued to form something meaningful, something special in its placement. That's technique. You have to be a craftsman to manipulate the language. Kanang feeling na artista, kapoy na. Kanang pina-rockstar ba? Pina-rockstar na feeling na, lagi inspired ko, hindi ko na writer, bro. Once man mo pagkamaayo, hindi ka musuwat. So, di na masalig, ana. Get a piece of paper or turn on your lappy. That's work, simply put. So, kaning writing, it's not for the faint of heart. Diba? Like, you join workshops and you bleed. Or simply the act of writing itself, you bleed. You're constantly working. So, writing is a dedication, it's a craft. And you have to take pride in that as well. Okay, nothing good ever comes out of something that's easy. No? Diba? Last slide. Okay. So, I think, puwang pa akong tayo. Okay. So, I think this is the last part of my talk. More importantly, so once you're done reading, researching, building your network, most importantly writing, you have to persist. Keep at it. You know, it doesn't matter whether you start out bad. Persistence is key. No one ever gets good by doing things once. You know? Like, if you feel na kaning medyo pedestrian yung pagsuwat, medyo conventional, medyo cliche, ang the cure to that is writing and work. You know, when I first started writing poetry in college, I sucked really bad. And I thought my writing was the best in the world. And when I look back now, oh my God, unsa man yung romance. Mabuang man ta aning hugot-hugot na way lami. God. And when you look back at your experience over the years, your persistence, you grow. imposible man na kaning di ta mo grow. Bisag na mo ingon mo. Like kaning I used to join workshops before. When I joined FIGAO, they would ask the fellows, is this a poem? Balak ba ni? Sakit ka na sa dugan, no? Nakaligin ng balak ba ni? Kaya siguro, dili pa kayo na harsh. Tingnan ko kaling sa una, years before me, mas harsh pa dyan na kaling. May sila, ilabay ni yung balak ni ayaw. Go home and plant kamote. Wow. You can't write go home and plant kamote. Don't let people tell you that, you know? They can say whatever they want, but don't believe it. Don't believe it. Just keep writing and you'll become better. So, last quote of the night. So, keep sending them out. You must never let a manuscript do nothing but eat its head off in a drawer. You send that work out again and again, even while you're working on another one. If you have talent, you will receive some measure of success, but only if you persist. Diba? And that's, I think part of our Cebuano spirit is grit. You know? As a Cebuano kita, mga taga Cebu, mga Bisaya, fighter ta. Kaya baka kaning mga artists, mga musicians, usahay kaning tinasalabayran, wa sila support, gamay kag support sa community. Kaya kaning mga filmmakers, kaning lately, sa mga salita ng pangbuhat, Miss Bulalakaw, Super Psycho Cebu, mga Bisaya, salita. They barely get any sponsorships here. I used to do production work for kaning mga student films or kaning for Ira Chowdhury sa Pananduban Pictures. She's now working for Cinema One. We used to do work for her. Yeah. Ang among buhaton, we would go to different outlets, we would go to different establishments, businesses. Yeah, maghatag may sponsorship letters. And ato may ayala, hatag may kaning, ngayon may request may kwarta kaning financial support for our film. Because, you know, we would offer them advertising in exchange. And you know what they told us? Ayaw lang. Wa may gamit mga kaning Bisaya na film, kinsa mo tanong Bisaya na film. And that's a challenge that not only filmmakers have to face, but writers as well. Isod kay publishing din diba? Usually publishing in Cebu is done by small publications, independent publications. It's very difficult. But what you have to do, kay Sebwano man ta, padayon, bahala na kung sa'yo sa ubang mga tao, bahala na what they supportan. You know, support yourself and continue. You have to believe in yourself, most importantly. And I hope someday that I see your faces or your writing in different journals and different publications. I hope to see you in Sunstar or Freeman someday. And if not there, I hope to see your work on the shelf in National, fully booked. Basta, padayon lang.
Everything she said is so true for many writers here. Would you agree? Writing is a bloodshed, and we are the warriors, and our pen is our swords, right? So, Miss Tiny will be entertaining some questions. So, if you have any questions, please. Any questions from the audience?
Hello. Miss Tiny. My name is Mayan. I'm only 16 years old from UP Cebu. I want to ask, how much money does a feature writer make?
Wow.
Can I use it to live a happy life? Can it be a sustainable career?
Full disclosure. I've been in yung glamorous ng lifestyle sa mga kaning future writer. Day, oy, so Sunstar Weekend, America na kanta. Hello, wow. I'm Zaba. Yeah, full disclosure, under 500 right now. Yeah, for every piece. Yeah, a poem is just 300 pesos. But why do I do it? You know what? Yeah, kaning also, yeah, you're helping your community. I really wanted to help out my fellow artists, mga amigo-amiga naman talaga, di ba? We're all brothers and sisters on the same island, and I want to help bring exposure to the artists and the creative community that we have here. Right now, oy, purdo itang mesos.
Alright, thank you. Anyone? Any more?
Hello, Miss Tiny. Regarding with Bayani's question, can I give a suggestion also? Option, kay mas mahal-mahal sa Bisaya. Mas mahal-mahal ang feature writing in Bisaya. So, mo dagan siya of 700 to 1,000. So, to all the writers here who wish to write feature writing in Sebwano.
That's true.
Sa Bisaya Magazine, because Bisaya Magazine is produced by Manila Bulletin, so it's national also. In English, we have Sunstar. So, kung natura ng Sunstar, no, sorry to disclose. My question is, how feature writing is closer or is it the same? I need a confirmation to CNL or creative nonfiction.
Creative nonfiction, not exactly siguro. Okay, creative nonfiction is more ano man siya na candid. It's more honest and personal. Okay, feature writing, you work basically more like a news writer, but just in-depth siya.
But can I write in creative, was this CNF form in feature writing?
Yeah, it's a columns. Like you can write it as a column. But I think the common mga form of feature writing, you have the articles, you have columns, you have event coverages. I say enough siguro like it's part and parcel. We're not it doesn't the definition is not entire feature writing. Or daghan man siya mga different formats. Anything else? Papa? No more? Yes, okay. I'm free.
I think there are no more questions because she said everything, right? Okay, now let's move on. We will invite you for a photo op.
Read more newspapers. You can also read us at streetconnect.com. So we have a blog there for mga art pieces. If you like art, mga contemporary art galleries, you can check us out there. I also have a web gallery. Okay, lately art scene, they're trying to experiment with visual digital art. Yeah, so they put up their artworks na online, or GIF format. Yeah. Oh. Check us out and hope to see you soon on the page. Panawat mo guys.
Totally agree. Thank you, Tiny. He has a degree in communication from the De La Salle University and a co-founder of a theater production called Little Boy Productions. And he is one of the main proponents of the Cebu Literary Festival that began in 2014. And before I introduce him, we will be playing a series of short videos